Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Welcome to today's episode of Indie Beacon Radio. I am your host, B. Allen Bourgeois, and today we have with us D.W. Bell, who's a new writer. Welcome, Mr. Bell.
Thank you.
So you have a new book. What is the title?
It's called The Revelator.
I'm sorry, the what?
The Revelator?
The Revelator. All right. What's it about?
It's kind of like a suspense thriller, assassin type of thing, but it's got a bit of magical realism in there to round it out. It's kind of a mishmash of a lot of things, but overall, it's just a really great, fast-paced, engaging, almost like a spy novel, some people say.
So what possessed you to write that?
It started out with just the first scene years ago. I actually just wrote the first scene as a lark to try to impress someone, and I ended up really liking it. It just sort of grew from there and just organically turned into this completely different thing than what I started with.
Okay. Now, this is not what you have written before, because you were a poet, literate for North Harris College. How did that come about?
Well, I've always had a background in poetry. Like when I was a little kid, some of my first memories are winning like an elementary school poetry contest, and I've eventually made my way up into college, and I've been writing poetry my whole life, but they had a contest there at North Harris, and I submitted some poems, and they selected me, and that's one thing I'm very proud of. And I still write poetry some, but I think it creeps into my work quite a bit with as far as word choice and rhythmic, the rhythm of the way I write, and I think it's a good melding.
Okay. Now, you said you were challenged to write this story. How? I mean, what was the circumstances?
Well, I started out, it's really kind of silly. I wrote it to impress a girl, the very first little first couple pages. And, as stereotypical writer, self-loathing, I wanted to write the most purple prose thing that, just the worst thing ever that she would then tell me was good. And I'd be like, haha, look, you don't know what you're talking about. And which is terrible of me. But when I read it, I was like, you know what? I do like it. And then I was like, yeah, maybe I can turn it into something else. And I initially just really thought it would be what my thought would be, just a generic genre fiction type of thing where, the guy's like a secret assassin, and I was going to have him run like a few 2-3 missions, and people will buy that. But it grew into so much more as far as, what we have now.
So, since you're a Marine veteran,
Mm-hmm.
How much of that has played into the storyline?
Well, the main character is a Marine Corps veteran. He's out. He's not active duty or anything like that. And I think the one thing I've noticed as far as like benefits from the time that I served is I got to understand people from many different types of backgrounds and things like that. And I feel that's really affected my writing as far as making believable characters and things of that nature. And of course, because this is sort of an action-based book where lots of gunfights and things like that, and the Marine Corps certainly figures into that with the weaponry and explosions and all that kind of fun stuff.
Now, you mentioned you've met a lot of people as you traveled around the world. Give us a little bit more detail. What type of people have you met? What type of people are you using in this storyline?
Well, the Marine Corps, military in general, but the Marine Corps especially, is just, really a melting pot, for lack of a better word, of, all types of Americans from the South, the Midwest. I was stationed in California for a while, out in North Carolina, so it's a different type of Southern than Texas, where I'm from. And then I was stationed in Japan for a while, and, he was even over in the Middle East a little bit on a, deployment. And you just meet so many different types of people as far as when you sit with them and talk with them and understand their beliefs as they're sort of influenced by the society that they grew up in, and how they're different from the way I grew up or the way my friends grew up. And I think it makes for better character structure. Like the my bad guy, for lack of a better term, the antagonist, is sort of like your like aristocratic Southerner type of guy. And then I've got another main character who's basically like from southern China. He speaks Cantonese, and the very different different parts of China obviously have vastly different cultures, and so that figured into it as well.
Now, out of curiosity, because of the Chinese or the Cantonese speaking and the Southern, where is this storyline taking place?
Well, it starts out in America. I don't say exactly where, but there are points where there is a significant portion in the beginning that takes place in Hong Kong. There's another good section that happens in California. Actually, that and the main climactic scenes at the end happen in California. And there's a bit actually in like Louisiana, like swamp, nice old Cajun country there, and a few other spots.
Now, were a lot of those places that you actually traveled to while you were as a Marine, or you've traveled since then?
Well, some of them, when I was aboard the Nimitz for a deployment, we did do a couple of nights in Hong Kong, so I actually did get to see Hong Kong, and it's a cool place. This was way back when, of course, it's like '96 or whatever, and it's changed a lot since then. But I did, being there and actually being around the hustle and bustle of everything did inform my opinion in the way that I write about it, as far as that goes. And I was stationed out in California for quite a while, so I did see mostly Southern California, San Diego and the Orange County areas. So I have a feel for the way those places look, and how the people are there. And when I was also again on the Nimitz, we pulled into Saudi Arabia there, and we spent a little time. We got a couple little jaunts on the out into town off the boat, and so I was able to experience that culture as well. So yeah, definitely, I've traveled a lot, both in the Marine Corps, and my family were good travelers when I was growing up. So it's been, I've got a lot of stuff to draw from as far as locales and cultures and things.
And that's wonderful that you not only have your family growing up traveling, but also as a Marine, you got to travel and stuff like that. So with this first book, is it turning out the way you had anticipated as a writer?
It surprised me, the turns it took when I really started to work on it diligently and really try to finish it. Like I said, in the beginning, I really just thought of it as I'll write a few missions and, just have a big gunfight at the end. And, that's kind of what people like sometimes, so maybe that'll sell. And then I really wasn't prepared for how much depth there got to be over time. There's quite a bit of spirituality in there that I wasn't expecting. So much so that I had to ask one of my early readers, is this book about religion? I really didn't know. I was just riding along, and there's all these things popping up. And actually, it does end in a big old gunfight, but in a way that's I think we got there in a different path than I would have figured.
Yeah. Okay. With the aspect of the story, do you see yourself writing a sequel to it, or is that one just a standalone and that's that, or what?
That my initial thought was it was going to be standalone, and that's that. But I did, after rereading it, once I had finished it, I do realize that I inadvertently left a door open at the end there, and so it's a possibility. I think that you're absolutely correct in my initial spirit of the book that I thought it was just going to be one, but I'm warming up to the idea of continuing with some of the characters that are there.
So in the way you described of how you wrote the book and stuff, and what you just said, makes me wonder if you're like a lot of other authors that have the voices of the characters constantly talking to them, demanding some attention and stuff, wanting more storyline. Is that happening to you?
I would certainly say that, yeah. I'm definitely the type of writer that I don't believe I actually make up any of this stuff. It's just what the characters tell me. I'm just kind of writing it down as they talk to me and what they want and stuff like that. And another book project that I'm working on has something similar. A character that I just thought was set dressing, I'm now looking forward as like, wow, she's going to be in like 4 or 5 more books once I get the other one done. So you never know when you discover a character in the story, how significant they're going to be. I've learned that that's something I've learned recently that, I'm definitely not in control of how powerful a character is or how long they're going to stick around,
Yes, and from my perspective, when I've written various books and stuff, I've always felt that it's not me writing it, it's something greater than me, whether it be the characters or just something else. And it sounds similar to you in that respect. How long did it take you to write the book before editing?
The story itself has been around like almost 10 years, but I didn't work on it constantly. It was sort of always on the back burner. And I was thinking about this the other day. I think as far as like when I finally decided, hey, I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to finish it, probably about a year, for before editing and before, proofreading and all that stuff.
Did you spend like a few hours each day, or what is your writing?
I'm very sporadic. I'm the worst when it comes to what the recommended, pathway to daily writing and write this many words. I'm unfortunately one that waits for inspiration. And so when it hits, I'm, on fire, and I'll write, a week straight, and then I'll put it away and not touch it for a month, which is terrible. But I'm trying to work on that,
Well, don't beat yourself up too much on that. We all have our different ways of doing it. So
Right.
Since this is done, how long ago did it come out?
It came out officially, I think, on the 9th of April. And so it's been about a month and a half, almost 2 months now. And, I've done, had it out and just mostly with friends and word of mouth, that kind of thing.
Okay. And you've started already working on the second one, or just allowing it to fester in your mind?
I've started working on it. I had another project that's I'm about 10,000 words in on, and I thought that was going to be the next one. But I had this thought come in my head about another story, and this one I think it's definitely in the forefront, and I've already written a pretty good part of the introduction. I think that'll be the one that goes the distance first, and then I'll go back to the project that I've been trying to finish out for a couple years now as well.
Okay, this is a perfect time for us to stop and let our sponsors do their thing, and we'll be right back.
Hi, Brakefield and Berkey here, award-winning authors for the Techno Thrillers books, the Enigma book series. Technology, today's weapon of choice, the cyber good guys versus the cyber bad guys.
We invite you to join our website, theenigmaseries.com, where you will get sample chapters, sample audibles, book trailers, and you can sign up for our mailing list. The books are available in ebook, paperback, and Audible. Thank you.
Tom Gromes, father of market intelligence, writing business books that are a game changer. International author of nonfiction, has written the first and only books on the collapse of Russia and the first and only book on market intelligence. Check them out at mkintel.org. That's mkintel.org, mkintel.org. Hi, this is Alan at Ask Alan Anything, a podcast designed to help you learn about publishing and marketing your books. So join us live on Facebook at 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time. The page is Indie Beacon Radio. Ask any questions about publishing and marketing your book. We're here to help you, and we've been doing it for a long time. So I hope to see you then. Thanks.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back. This is your host, B. Alan Bourgeois. You are watching Indie Beacon Radio. We have with us D.W. Bell, who has come out with his first novel April of 2019. And he is now working on his second one. Welcome back. I'm David. You mentioned the second one. You've kind of written the introduction. So tell me about the second one.
Well, it's kind of the working title of it right now is Probe, and the inspiration of it just came out. You remember recently in the news they were talking about the Mars rover, and its last message that it sent out was, the sun is going down and my batteries are low, or something like that, and just the humanity of that sort of struck me. And this particular one is it's going to have some sci-fi robot stuff in it, but it's most of it's going to be set in the Old West in various time periods. Some parts with Native Americans, some parts with the standard Old West gunfighter time with the gold mines and things like that. And it's sort of the reverse of our Mars rover. So it'd be an alien probe on Earth, in these various time periods that's just there, and then finding all these minerals and materials that might be interesting, and then that's its job here. And then how do humans interact with this thing that's obviously so far ahead technology wise.
Okay. When you were mentioning the Western and robots, I was wondering how you were going to put those two together and stuff. It made me automatically think of Westworld, the TV show. So bringing the alien craft type robot into it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What possessed you, other than the fact of hearing that Mars comment? Was there anything from your past that got you into robotics or that type of stuff?
Well, I think technology is cool on any level, especially the sci-fi, alien stuff that we're not sure. A lot of the technology we have today was developed in science fiction, years ago, before, or at least fantasized about and written about. And so I think we all like to sort of dream about what's possible technology-wise. And I do work as a machinist right now, so we do make parts sometimes for robotic equipment and things. So when you work around metal and machines that are sort of computer controlled all the time, I guess that would be something that would stick a little bit of robotic technology in my thought process almost daily.
Yeah, it's good that you've got that type of a background to be able to do that and stuff. But it's interesting also that you're going back in history. It's not that far. I mean, we're talking about 100 years or so to pull in stuff. What kind of research are you doing for that?
Well, there's a big part of the story is based on, basically several different elements like gold and uranium and, a couple other things. And so I'm having to research what part of the world or what part of the U.S. Has those available. And, a lot of it's going to be like Northeast Arizona, I find out. So I'm doing a lot of research on the landscapes there. It's actually leading me into some of the Native American tribes, some of the early Pueblo people there. So that's great because I get to read about them and work them into the story as well for that time period. And mostly that stuff, mostly finding out about the funeral practices and some of the belief systems as far as religion goes and spirituality, and how that would affect their interaction with one of these, like a mechanical drone or whatever that they don't understand. Kind of like the old Eric von Daniken thing, where our religions, in his philosophy, was that our religion was spawned by man's inability to understand alien spacecraft and some things like that. So I might pull some of that in as well.
Now, since you're talking about gold and silver and stuff, and that particular area of the country, and being a Western, are you going to add in parts of the gold rush?
I believe so. I think the idea initially came basically like a local myth or legend that there's this gunfighter that guards a gold mine, and he's so rich with gold that he makes bullets out of gold, and so they just find these guys shot with bullets of gold, and that. So yeah, it'll be like one of these boomtown areas for part of it, and I can't resist having like the old crusty prospector guy in there somewhere, that's in every old Western movie, that comes in on his donkey or whatever. Some tropes are fun and okay. You can put those in if you like. So.
You mentioned that you also have another project that you're working on. You want to tell us anything about it?
Yeah, that's the one that everybody wants me to get back on. It's a dual time period historical fiction piece based in Galveston, and I call it right now the Balinese Curse. And so it focuses around the 1900 storm, and I believe it was Ike Ike was in 2008, I believe. And so it focuses on the original storm, sort of gives it, I love putting all the kind of seedier and like curses and a little bit of mystical stuff in there. So something that happens back in the 1900 time frame causes the 1900 storm, and it becomes a repeating curse. And if you look at the actual dates of storms that have hit Galveston, they actually align very very well with like some of the sort of Taoist numerology systems and some of the important numbers that pop up in Eastern philosophy. The storms actually line up with that, so that kind of sparked me thinking about that. And so I really enjoy bouncing back and forth between the time frames, because they're two completely different stories, but there's a character that's actually old enough to connect them. And and obviously the subject matter is the same between the two, because they're both sets of characters in both time frames are trying to sort of dispel this curse. And it gives me I traveled on to Galveston quite often when I was working on it exclusively, and so I did like a lot of the old home tours because they're actually in the book. So that was cool to be able to know, right off the foyer is this particular room, and I can write it exactly like it is. And so that's been very interesting to me. But I think that'll be a really cool book.
There is a lot of history in Galveston. I've had the pleasure of living on the island and learning a lot about that. In reference to what you were talking about as far as the spiritual, mystical aspect, the island is very strong in that as far as the community goes. And there's a lot of people that practice the spiritual and metaphysical aspects, whether you call them readers or spiritual guides or whatever. There is a very strong community down there, and that would be an interesting tug into your storyline, which brings up the question, because you mentioned this in the first book, that it took on a spiritual context, and you're seeing a little bit in the second book, and now you're talking about in a third book. So it makes me wonder, what is the underlying spiritual context that you're putting out there, whether intentionally or unintentionally?
Yeah, it's like, again, I didn't even realize that was going to come out, when I was first writing the first book, the one that we just completed, the Revelator. And that ended up being a lot about spiritual balance, I think, as far as like, and I was trying to explain it to a friend of mine the other day, is I kind of have the view that all religion and, different types of philosophy are just our imperfect understanding of how the universe works. We've seen like one little small piece, and we try to explain the whole thing away from that. So it was really fun in the Revelator to pull from the different traditions that I've studied, different religions that I've studied, different paths of spirituality, and throw them all together, because they're all effectively working together. It's just different ways to look at it, in my opinion. And that's becoming kind of an ongoing theme, it seems like, in my work, because even the probe one that we were just talking about in the Old West and with the robotics, it's already snuck into that a little bit as well, with only the intro written. So
that's good. And that's great that you're allowing that to happen. Some people feel a tendency to not allow that, even though they may believe in it. But that's good that you're allowing it. This is another perfect spot for us to stop, have a break from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. National Authors Day is November 2nd, 2019. This annual event is getting a fresh look with a parade that starts at the Texas State Capitol and works its way south down Congress Avenue. Join us as we celebrate the joy of being a published author and the joy of reading. For more information about the parade, merchandise, and other events related to this event, please visit our website at authors.dearindy.org.
What would you do if you found out everyone on the town council were thieves and murderers? That's what happened in Bandera, Texas in 1873. John Cruder was the marshal, yet he needed to operate outside the law in order to balance the scales of justice. He is the Midnight Marauder. You can find his books on Amazon.com and TopWesterns.com in paperback, digital, and audio. I'm Roy Clinton, and I hope you'll read The Midnight Marauder.
Thank you for watching or listening to this show. Indie Lector is proud to sponsor this programming. As a thank you for listening or watching, we would like to give you a 10% coupon code that you can use on our bookstore at indielector.store. use coupon code VIDEO19. Again, that's indielector.store, coupon code VIDEO19 for a 10% discount on any purchase. Thank you.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back to Alan Bourgeois, your host at the Indie Beacon Radio Show. And I kind of messed that statement up, so I apologize. We have with us D.W. Bell, who's been talking about his new book that came out in April 2019 and also some new projects. And welcome back, David. We have been talking about your new projects and stuff like that, and this show will be up on Amazon Fire, YouTube, and a whole bunch of other podcasts for years to come. So hopefully that will definitely get people interested in those storylines and check you out and stuff like that, which then brings up the question, how can people find you?
Well, I'm not the most social person in the world, but I am making the effort to get out there. I've got an author Facebook page. It's at DW Bell Author. You can find me. The same handle for Twitter is at DW Bell Author. Instagram is DW Bell Writer, because somebody already had author taken. And I also have a website for my book right now. It's therevelatorbook.com, and you can also find me on Amazon.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you will go crazy writing and then you'll take a break and let it stew and work on other things and stuff like that. So I'm curious about your Instagram account. Are you taking pictures when you go down to Galveston of places you're writing about and stuff?
I plan to. It's a pretty fresh new thing for me. Right, so far it's just been pictures of me doing little book signings with friends, or there was a guy I know has a Hummer, like an actual military Humvee, with a 50 cal on top of it, and that's in my Revelator book. So I took a picture standing on top of it, But that's the idea going forward, is that as I'm out and in different places that interest me and might be part of the story, to document them, not only for myself, but people love seeing places like that and knowing the background of the story.
Great. And your current book, where is it available?
Right now it's available on Amazon and my website, therevelatorbook.com. And I believe, yes, and soon to be Indie Lector, I believe.
Okay. And if you would be kind enough, only because of the connection, it's spelled the title of the book.
Oh, okay. It's The Revelator, TheRevelator, like John the Revelator.
All right. So therevelator.com is the website.
Oh, therevelatorbook.com. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So therevelatorbook.com. I'll make sure we get that right so people can come and buy it. And then, of course, on your website, I trust you're putting up information about the books you're working on and little bits and pieces or events that you're going to be at and stuff.
Yeah, on my Facebook is where I'm most active, and I do post fairly frequently about what I'm writing, and if I thought a particular part was funny and I want to share about it or something like that, yeah, I do talk about that. And if I'm able to go to events and things, it's usually on my Facebook page. But now that I've got a Twitter and a few other things, I'm going to put it out there for as many people can find it as possible.
Great. And I understand Galveston has a book festival. Will you be attending that?
I certainly plan to. Yeah, I'd love to. I love Galveston. Get down there any chance I can.
Great. And the last question for the evening. What words of advice do you have for somebody who wants to be a writer?
Just do it. I mean, I guess that's the thing. Is like it's the hardest part about it is finishing. So you have to, and I've learned that over the past 10 years with this book, is working on it in spits and spurts. You have to stay at it, but just complete it. Go at your own pace, whatever it is. If you can write every day, great. But really, it's as simple as that. You just do it, because everybody can think, oh man, I wish I was a writer. If I could only had time to write. And I fought with myself on that. And so I finally made time to write. And that's been the whole difference. It's making the time to do it and make it an important part of your life.
Well, great. Well, I thank you very much, DW, for being with us, and we wish you the best of luck with your current book as well as the new ones that you'll be coming out, and we'll hope to see you out and about somewhere soon.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website at indiebeacon.com.